Wrestlers who were punished for breaking unwritten rules.
WWE and wrestling more
Let's
broadly
go!
have their own set of unwritten rules that wrestlers need to obey.
All right,
What
got
happens
it.
if they're broken?
Got it.
Keep watching and find out.
Right
Almost
back.
everyone who shared a locker room with Chris Benoit tells a similar story.
Bro, we're
The
starting
Canadian
off
Crippler was
crazy.
one of the most intense wrestlers ever.
Whenever I'd see him, he would always have like his little cup of,
Maybe
like a styrofoam cup of
Corey
coffee
Smith?
with
Cup of
the
coffee?
straw in it, and he'd be chewing it. Be like, "So you still doing your squats?" Like, yeah, I am. How many? 500? Yeah, that's good. All right, you want to do some? Like he was like always kind of like that intense kind of guy.
This is why Benoit was
That's
the one
alright.
person you did not want to break an unwritten
he's
rule in
crazy,
front of.
though. He's
After
crazy.
Chris Benoit's death, WWE hosted a tribute show. During it,
No
Triple H
way.
shared a story of what Benoit did to a younger wrestler when the newcomer
This is
broke
crazy.
an unwritten
All right,
rule.
to start off.
Funny story, there was a young wrestler that showed some disrespect towards Shawn Michaels in the locker room, and Chris took it upon himself. It was not a big deal and nobody was that upset about it, but Chris took it upon himself to teach him a lesson, and Chris made that young wrestler do 1,000 squats in a row. Chris stood
1,000?
next to him and did them with him. He did 1,000 right along with him. He made that guy do 1,000 squats. The next day when that young wrestler couldn't bend his legs, Chris made him do 500 more.
While the outcome of
What
every
the
WWE
hell?
match is predetermined, winning championships is still a big honor, especially when a wrestler wins a world title. Not only do world champions usually make more money, but it's the company
Should I
saying
do
that they
squats
want
the
this
rest of the
particular
video?
wrestler to represent
Let's do
them.
it.
As such, there are some
Let's
unwritten
do
rules
it.
that
Hold
come.
on. Let me get in position. I'm gonna do squats for the rest of the video. Squats for the rest of the video. Keep in mind, I am not good at squats. So let's just. Alright. Squats for the rest of the video. Let me just.
With being a
Just. Right. Alright, let's do it.
world champion. One of them is dressing a certain way. In 2009,
shit.
CM Punk won the World Heavyweight Championship.
Shit. Already fucked up. Already fucking fucked up. Now I gotta find the nail. Found it. Found it. Found the thumbtack. Alright. So look what I gotta do now. Because I already fucked up. Let me just move this stuff out the way. I just gotta move all this stuff out the way now. So that nothing happens again. Sorry, this is a long ass intro. Long ass video. I have a lot of stuff in the way, I guess. Yeah, honestly, I don't know what's happening right now. This. I'm not gonna use cut out. But we're doing it still. We're still. That should be good. I think that should be good. Alright. Okay, squats for the rest of the video. Like so. Let's go back. You're good. You're good.
There are some unwritten rules that come with being a world champion. One of them is dressing a certain way. In 2009, CM Punk won the World Heavyweight Championship, but he allegedly got in trouble backstage during his title reign. Punk reportedly dressed pretty casually while he was traveling, even though world champions are expected to dress professionally when out in public. The Undertaker, who was WWE's locker room leader at the time, told CM Punk that since he was the World Heavyweight Champion, he should dress better. The Straight Edge superstar talked back and presumably didn't change his travel attire. Allegedly, CM
What?
Punk's punishment for this was losing the World Heavyweight Championship to The Undertaker
That's
only
nasty.
41 days into Punk's title reign. This new wrestler got a very painful
Wait,
lesson on why you
Is that the guy?
don't want to break this unwritten WWE rule. In late 2004, Daniel Puder won Tough Enough, a reality competition where the winner received a $1 million WWE contract. Backstage, Puder was not welcomed by most of the wrestlers because they felt he hadn't been in the business long enough to earn a contract, especially one valued at $1 million. However, Puder made things worse for himself.
Oh yeah, this guy.
Shortly after becoming a signed WWE talent, Daniel Puder is one of 30 wrestlers who participated in the Royal Rumble match. Backstage, Puder got arrogant and told people because he was in the Royal Rumble, he was in the main event. It's an unwritten rule that wrestlers don't brag about their matches or their spot
for 8 more minutes?
It's an even bigger unwritten rule for
at?
newcomers to do this. Because of this, Daniel Puder was given a painful lesson. Once Daniel Puder entered the Royal Rumble match, wrestling veterans Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, and Hardcore Holly gave Puder some hard chops.
No way.
Additionally, Daniel Puder didn't get in a single move of offense, likely to drive home the lesson even more. Being respectful and just simply pleasant to be around is important in any job. However, any wrestler will tell you that working for WWE isn't a job, but a lifestyle. In most cases, wrestlers spend more time with their coworkers than their own families. That's why being respectful backstage is an important unwritten rule, and wrestlers who have broken it have gotten punished in some pretty horrible ways. During a tour, Enzo Amore found out the nerves of his fellow wrestlers. It ultimately resulted in him being kicked off a bus and forced to find his own transportation. That's not desirable, but Enzo's punishment seems pretty minor compared to what happened to this female wrestler.
What the fuck?
In the mid-90s, Sunny was one of the only female talents on the WWE roster. While you would think this would play in her favor, Sunny actually made a lot of people backstage upset. She rubbed a lot of her coworkers the wrong way, and she was supposedly cheating on her boyfriend, Chris Candido, with Shawn Michaels. Because of this, Sunny was punished in a pretty disgusting way. At the time, Sunny was managing a tag team called the Smoking Guns, who were feuding with another team called the Godwins. The Godwins characters were pig farmers who brought live pigs and a bucket of slop out to the ring. One particular match between the Smoking Guns and the Godwins saw Sunny get a bucket of slop dropped on her head. Before the match, the Godwins were putting the bucket of slop together and added in some special ingredients.
What the fuck
so I'd made it, took it in the locker room, and all the boys were there, and I said, now this is the slop Sonny's getting, nobody mess with it, and I set it down. So about an hour or two later, come back, getting ready to change, get ready. My damn slop bucket's filled up about, I don't know, a couple inches from the top. Well, even Cornette, he said there was 23 different DNAs in that bucket when it went over Sonny's head.
While respecting everyone is important in WWE, respecting veterans is an even more
DNAs of what?
important unwritten rule. For example, when WWE talent are flying on a plane, younger wrestlers are expected to give up their seats to a veteran if the younger wrestler's seat is nicer than the veteran's. When this doesn't happen, it can result in some less than desirable outcomes. In 1999, Jeff and Matt Hardy won the Tag Team Championship, their first title reign in WWE. Michael Hayes, a backstage road agent, had given the Hardys first-class plane tickets as a reward.
That's a cool style for the Jeff Hardys.
However, Kane was also on the flight and sat in a worse seat. Since Jeff and Matt didn't give up their seats, they faced some hazing backstage, while Michael Hayes had to pay for Kane's lunch for an entire month. Although, some wrestlers do try to take advantage of this unwritten rule.
I remember Ezekiel Jackson.
Daniel Bryan was very new on the WWE roster and was getting ready to board a plane. Ezekiel Jackson, who had been in WWE for about 2 years, approached Bryan and said he was taking Daniel's seat since it was nicer than his. However, William Regal, who's been wrestling since the mid-90s, stepped in and said, "Do you even know who you're talking to? This man is like a son to me and has more talent in his little finger than you have in your entire body." Ezekiel Jackson backed off after being called out, but Daniel Bryan still ended up giving up his seat to someone else. By their nature, unwritten rules can be difficult to communicate, and wrestlers sometimes break them without even realizing it. WWE always has a masseuse backstage to help wrestlers loosen up and
Deshaun Watson?
The unwritten rule is that only big-name main event wrestlers get to use the masseuse. Former WWE wrestler and ring-announcer Ricardo Rodriguez revealed that at one show, a local female talent was working as an extra. She went over to the masseuse, unaware of the unwritten rule she was breaking. Midway through the massage, WWE's head of talent relations pulled the extra out and informed her she couldn't use the masseuse. However, even main event stars get called out for breaking unwritten rules. When Seth Rollins had recently made the jump to the main roster, he was wrestling a match in Fresno, California. Once Rollins got backstage, he put an ice pack on his neck. Seth hadn't hurt his neck, but he wanted to cool down and take care of his body. However, this was seen as unnecessary since Seth Rollins had only been on the main roster for a few weeks at this time. John Cena approached Rollins and gave Seth a message.
What?
So Cena's standing next to him. He's like, "How many matches have you had on the road?" And I was like, "Oh, 3." He's like, "All right, just checking." And so we all knew what that meant, right?
Likewise, when Summer Rae was new to the roster, Randy Orton called her out for using an ice pack on her foot. Some unwritten rules make sense, but others seem kinda bogus. WWE wrestlers are hired as independent contractors, not employees. The reason WWE does this is that as independent contractors, they don't have to pay for wrestlers' rental cars, hotels, food, wrestling gear, health insurance, and other expenses that WWE usually...
Dude, I don't do squats, man. This is a lot. How many have I done? How many have I done?
would have to if wrestlers were employees of the company. The plus side for wrestlers is that they have more freedom because they are independent contractors. Or at least, they're supposed to. It's an unwritten, but very important rule that WWE wrestlers talk to management before working for other companies. When Sasha Banks got offered a role on the Star Wars show The Mandalorian, WWE did not want her to accept it. While legally, WWE couldn't do anything, the company booked her on shows when she was supposed to be filming. Ultimately, Banks found a way around it, but another wrestler wasn't so lucky. After spending years in the company, it seemed like WWE was finally ready to push Dolph Ziggler as a main event star. He was the sole survivor in the Team John Cena vs. Team Authority match at Survivor Series, and soon after, he won the Intercontinental Championship. However, around this time, Ziggler had booked some stand-up comedy shows, but hadn't gotten permission from WWE. As punishment for breaking this unwritten rule, Dolph Ziggler lost the IC title only about 3 weeks into his title reign. This next unwritten rule is so important that even wrestlers working in different companies respect it, and that is not using someone else's moves. In 1995, Triple H made his WWE debut. His finisher was a cutter, and it got the job done. The only problem was that another wrestler was already using that finisher. Diamond Dallas Page, who was wrestling for WCW, used the Diamond Cutter to end his matches. Once he saw what Triple H was doing, DDP called up the game and asked him politely not to use that move. The game had no problem with it, and he started using the pedigree as his new finisher. However, things aren't always this peaceful. Once the Great Khali joined WWE, one of his signature moves was a chop across the chest. There wasn't any issue with this until the Great Khali started shushing the crowd before he did it. This was a problem because that's what Big Show would do. Big Show got upset and repeatedly told Khali to stop doing it, but the Indian Giant didn't listen. Finally, Big Show snapped. After a show, the two met backstage, and Big Show and Khali got into a fight. Big Show hit the first punch, and a real fight between the Giants broke out. The brawl ended abruptly when, according to Chris Jericho, Big Show tripped over a chair and fell to the ground. The next day, Big Show was ordered to apologize to the Great Khali since he swung first. Khali's response was a simple, "No problem, bro." While that situation wasn't great, another wrestler got it much worse. In late 2004, WWE's most controversial character, Muhammad Hassan, debuted. The character was an Arab American, so of course he was given the camel clutch as a finisher. At the same time, Eddie Guerrero was also using the camel clutch. After receiving advice from a veteran, Muhammad Hassan went to Eddie and asked him not to use the camel clutch. What Hassan didn't know was that Guerrero's family invented the camel clutch.
No way.
This was seen as disrespectful, and Muhammad Hassan ultimately had to pick up a $2,000 bar tab for all the wrestlers. The crazy part is that Eddie Guerrero wasn't upset at all. He understood that Muhammad meant no disrespect, but in WWE, once you break an unwritten rule, there's no going back. Now, another important part of WWE's culture is wrestlers pranking each other. In fact, sometimes wrestlers even pull pranks that appear on TV. To see those, watch this video.
That was probably over 100, right? It had to be over 100. Anyways, good video. Not doing that again.